Most people design a kitchen for looks and then spend the rest of their lives cleaning up the consequences of that decision. The following small details determine which group you belong to. You'd be awesome if you liked this video. 1. Choosing a non-porous countertop. Marble looks best in the showroom and becomes the biggest problem in a real kitchen. Not because it is soft or fragile, but because of its physical nature. Millions of microscopic pores on the surface that are invisible to the naked eye but highly visible to liquids. When you spill red wine, soy sauce, or coffee on marble and do not wipe it up immediately within a few minutes, that liquid does not sit on the surface. It seeps down, penetrates into those tiny pores, and forms a stain from the inside out. No cleaning method can fix it because the stain is no longer on the stone surface. This is the reason why marble in Design Magazine kitchens always looks perfect. They do not actually cook in them. Butcher block has a similar problem in a different way. Wood expands and contracts with temperature and humidity, creating micro cracks over time, and raw meat juices seeping into those cracks is something you do not want to think about when prepping food. Quartz is the option I find causes the least long-term regret because it is non-porous, requires no sealing, and resists most stains if wiped within a few hours. Porcelain slabs are emerging quickly due to a water absorption rate of under 0.5%. That figure means that broth or sauce spilled on the surface basically has no way to seep down. Granite is a good option if you are willing to seal it properly on a regular cycle once a year, compared to marble, which needs to be sealed once every 6 months. Porcelain has a trade-off worth knowing in advance. It is so hard that if you accidentally drop a heavy cast iron pot against the countertop edge, it can chip or crack and cannot be repaired because the pattern only lives in the surface glaze layer. This is not a reason to avoid porcelain, but a reason to know what you are choosing beforehand. 2. Flat and smooth kitchen backsplashes. Geometric tile and rough limestone were very hot in kitchen design about 5 years ago. They look beautiful in photos, but there's one thing photos cannot show you: what happens inside the grout lines and raised edges of those tiles after 6 months of real cooking. Grease from frying does not fly straight into the range hood. A significant portion splatters directly onto the wall behind the cooktop and lands precisely in the dead zones that a rag cannot reach. Over time, the grease layer accumulated in those crevices combines with dust and steam to create a mixture that no ordinary cleaning product can completely handle. This is why beautiful tile walls in showrooms never look that way after a few years of real-world use. The simplest solution is flat ceramic or porcelain tile, with a protective glaze. The flat surface has no dead zones, and one wipe cleans it. Flat tempered glass goes one step further because it has absolutely no grout lines, but the trade-off is that it's too honest. A single water drop or tiny grease streak shows up instantly, and you will have to wipe it down after every cooking session if you do not want to look at a smudged mess. If you still love subway tile and do not want to give it up, there is a lesser-known technical solution. Ask the installer to use epoxy grout instead of regular white cement grout. Epoxy grout is completely non-porous, never stains, and requires no resealing for the lifetime of the cabinets. The cost is more expensive and requires a highly skilled installer, but this is a one-time investment that permanently solves the black grout line problem that most people endure. Next is the reason why your kitchen might look clean but is still accumulating dirt and grime in places you would never think of. 3. Minimalist kitchen cabinet design. There is something that happens at the very top of classic kitchen cabinets, with crown molding and decorative corbels, that most homeowners only discover when they climb up a ladder to clean for the first time. It is a thick, viscous mixture layer of dust and grease stuck tightly into every crevice of those decorative details. The mechanism is very simple. Dust falls from above. Grease vapors rise from the range. Those two things meet precisely at the molding lines and decorative edges, where there are enough crevices to trap dust but not wide enough for a rag to reach. The result is a yellowish-brown sticky glue layer that cannot be wiped away with a regular towel, but requires a small brush and strong degreaser. And even when you finish, everything returns to its original state a few months later. Flat panel cabinets completely solve this problem because there is not a single raised lip for dust and grease to cling to. Wiping a flat cabinet door takes about 10 seconds per door. If you want to keep a bit of visual depth without creating a cleaning trap, a slim shaker profile has a significantly thinner frame than a traditional shaker, and is currently a popular choice in modern condo projects because it balances aesthetics and practicality. Ceiling height cabinet design is what I recommend in most projects regardless of style, because it completely eliminates the empty space above the top of the cabinets. That gap in kitchens with cabinets lower than the ceiling usually accumulates a thick layer of dense dust that many homeowners do not clean for years because they cannot see it. When built to the ceiling, that problem does not exist. The practical trade-off is that flat panel cabinets are not suitable if you want a cozy farmhouse or traditional style. Those are two things you cannot have at the same time, and you should know that before making your decision. 4. Choose smart cabinet finishes and colors. There are two most common mistakes I see people make when choosing kitchen cabinets. First is high gloss because it looks luxurious in the showroom. Second is solid black or charcoal because design magazines are heavily promoting them. Both create the same problem in two different ways. The kitchen never looks clean enough even though you just finished wiping. High gloss acts like a small mirror on each cabinet door. Every fingerprint, water spot, and dried wipe streak reflects back under modern kitchen LED lighting. In a real working kitchen, you touch the cabinet doors dozens of times a day, and there is no way to avoid it. Dark colors create the opposite problem. Household dust is usually light gray, standing out prominently against a black or charcoal background under any light angle. Satin is the Goldilocks point between those two extremes. Not too matte to be hard to wipe, not too glossy to show fingerprints. When combined with natural wood grain that has a clear texture, you have a second layer of protection. Those grain lines act as visual camouflage, making small scratches almost disappear into the surrounding wood pattern. There is an important warning about black stainless steel. The black layer on those appliances is not real stainless steel. It is a thin polymer film coated over stainless steel. When scratched by pots, pans, or kitchen tools, it peels and reveals the white stainless steel streaks inside with no way to repair it. If you want easy-to-maintain stainless steel appliances, look for the specific keyword fingerprint-resistant stainless steel when buying. This is a real surface technology, not just a coating. I have seen a $120,000 kitchen look dirtier than a $30,000 kitchen just because of one wrong decision at this step. And this is the step most people don't think about until it's too late. 5. Neutral-toned and large-format kitchen flooring. The kitchen floor is the only surface in the kitchen that you never clean often enough compared to the rate at which it gets dirty. Every time you cook, a few things fall. Every time you walk through, dust and crumbs follow your feet in. The decision on floor color and material therefore directly affects the amount of effort you put in every week, not just the aesthetics. Pure white floors and solid black floors look good in photos because the photos are taken before anyone steps in to cook. In actual use, both act as a backdrop that highlights everything of the opposite color that falls. Light gray house dust disappears on a white floor, but shows clearly on a dark floor. Breadcrumbs and food scraps look more obvious on a white floor. No solid color wins against both types of dirt at the same time. Warm, neutral tones with light veining solve that problem by not creating a uniform background for dirt to pop out. Beige, grayish, or light brown with natural grain scatter the gaze in a way that solid colors do not. The human eye finds no point of contrast to focus on, so the floor looks cleaner than it actually is even if you haven't wiped it yet. Tile size is just as important as color, because grout lines are where the real dirt accumulates, not the tile surface. Large format porcelain tiles from 24 to 48 inches reduce the number of grout lines by 60 to 70% compared to small tiles over the same floor area. Fewer grout lines mean fewer places for dirty mop water to settle and seep down, creating permanent black streaks. Porcelain also has an absorption rate below 0.5%, meaning soup or sauce spilled on the floor has no way to penetrate the tile surface. Luxury vinyl plank is a rapidly growing choice because it has no grout lines, is completely waterproof, and is softer on the feet than hard tile. The practical point to know beforehand is that at certain lighting angles, no matter how good the printing technology is, it still has a plastic feel compared to real stone. This is not a reason to avoid LVP, but a reason to go to the showroom to see it in person before deciding instead of just relying on internet photos. 6. Install undermount sinks and pull-down faucets. The area around the edge of the sink in most kitchens is covered in black mold and smells bad, not because the homeowner didn't clean it properly. It's a direct consequence of a flawed design decision from the start that most contractors don't explain before installation. Overhead sinks have a raised edge that sits on the countertop. Every time you wipe the countertop, all the food scraps and dirty water get trapped in that edge instead of being swept straight into the sink. Water collects at the edge and seeps into the silicone sealant underneath, and over time, that sealant breaks down, turning into a breeding ground for bacteria that can't be wiped away from the outside. This design creates hygiene problems from day one, not after a few years. Underhead sinks solve this problem by completely eliminating the edge. The countertop is flush with the sink basin, and with a single sweep, all the food scraps from the countertop fall straight into the sink without any obstruction. In terms of hygiene, this is a much bigger difference than any cleaning product you can buy. There's a technical detail that most contractors don't explain when advising on undermount sinks. When cutting stone for an undermount sink, there are 3 types of edge finish: positive reveal, exposing the sink rim; negative reveal, allowing the stone to overlap the sink rim; and zero reveal, allowing the stone and sink to be flush. If you choose a positive reveal, that exposed rim continues to be a breeding ground for food crumbs and mold, just like with an above-counter sink. Negative reveal, or zero reveal, is what truly creates the easy-to-clean surface you're paying for. Pull-out faucets address another but equally important difference. When you need to rinse the corners of a large sink or rinse a pot on the stove, A fixed faucet creates more maneuvering, and significantly more water spills out compared to a pull-out faucet, which you can precisely direct to the spot you need to rinse. There's something in your kitchen you touch more often than your phone every day, yet it's the least thought about during the design phase. And it's silently accumulating bacteria in ways you wouldn't expect. 7. Limit open shelving near the cooking area. Open shelving in the kitchen is not an aesthetic issue. It is an issue of the physics of kitchen air and the distance of the shelves from the stove. When you fry or saute, grease vapors do not fly straight into the range hood. A significant portion of them floats in the air and lands on any surface within the zone of influence. Objects placed on open shelves within a 5-foot radius of the stove accumulate grease 3 times more frequently than items placed further away. If you don't use that item often, that grease layer accumulates gradually and combines with dust to form a sticky mixture that cannot be wiped with a regular damp cloth. The second problem with open shelves is not related to grease, but to practical use. Open shelves look good when everything on them is coordinated, clean, and intentionally arranged. In a real family kitchen, that requires a level of discipline that most people cannot maintain after the first few months. The result is that open shelves turn into a place for clutter instead of display. Closed cabinets solve both problems at once. If you still want to display beautiful items, glass front cabinets are a good balanced choice because they protect the contents from grease vapors while still allowing them to be seen from the outside. A solution growing quickly in new kitchen designs is the appliance garage, a cabinet system with a tambour or sliding door right at the countertop level that allows you to completely hide the coffee maker, toaster, and blender after use. The kitchen countertop remains completely empty. One wipe is all it takes to clean without having to lift each appliance. This is something that open shelving never allows you to do. 8. Curved edge designs and seamless backsplashes. The 90-degree angle between the countertop and the kitchen wall is the biggest hygiene weakness in most kitchens, even those just recently renovated. This is not because of poor construction quality, but because it is the junction between two different surfaces, and any junction needs silicone sealant to be watertight. Silicone is an organic material. In a kitchen environment with constant changes in humidity, temperature, and frequent water splashes, it begins to break down and discolor after about 2 to 3 years. Once that sealant layer degrades, water and food crumbs seep behind it, creating a mold colony that cannot be reached from the outside. This is why the corner between the countertop and the kitchen wall is almost always the first place black mold appears in any kitchen. A Cove backsplash solves this problem by extending the countertop stone up the wall in a smooth curve with no junction point. No 90-degree angle, no grout lines, no silicone sealant. The entire surface from the countertop up the wall is a continuous block. Wiping once from top to bottom cleans it completely. This seamless design reduces the risk of water stagnation at the junction by 99% compared to traditional wall tiling. Curved countertops apply the same philosophy to the edges and corners of the countertop and kitchen island. Sharp 90-degree corners are not only places for dust to accumulate, but also the points most prone to chipping or breaking upon impact. Softly rounded or beveled edges reduce both problems simultaneously. The fabrication cost for a Cove backsplash and curved edges is significantly higher than traditional square-cut stone because it requires modern CNC machines and highly skilled labor. This is a long-term investment. You pay more once during construction, so you don't have to deal with mold and silicone degradation for the entire lifespan of the kitchen. There is one decision in kitchen design that, if wrong, will cause you to take thousands of extra steps every year without even knowing you are doing so. 9. Touchless appliances and antimicrobial materials. There is a loop that happens in the kitchen every day that most people don't notice until someone in the family gets a mild case of food poisoning for no apparent reason. You are marinating raw meat, your hands are covered in meat juice, and you need to turn on the faucet to wash your hands. To turn the faucet, you touch the handle with your hand. After washing your hands, you turn off the faucet by touching that exact same handle. That cycle repeats with the refrigerator, with the spice cabinet, and with any surface you need to touch during the cooking process. This is the most common cross-contamination mechanism in home kitchens, and no cleaning product can solve it because you cannot wipe continuously while cooking. Touchless faucets solve the most critical touchpoint in that cycle. Kohler and Moen have recorded record growth in touchless faucet sales this year because consumers are increasingly focusing on food hygiene. Refrigerators that open with a foot sensor and range hoods controlled by gestures solve the remaining touchpoints in that cycle. Antimicrobial nanocoatings on new generation kitchen cabinet surfaces can reduce visible fingerprints by up to 90% and kill up to 99.9% of surface bacteria within 24 hours without the use of chemicals. This technology uses silver or copper ions, integrated into the surface coating, operating continuously without user intervention. The practical trade-off to know is that touchless devices depend entirely on electricity and sensors. When a sensor fails or the power goes out, you need a backup plan. Maintenance and repair costs for smart appliances are also higher than traditional mechanical devices, and not all repair technicians have experience with these systems. 10. Integrated trash management and garbage disposals. More than 90% of suburban homes use a garbage disposal under the sink. That number is not accidental. It reflects a reality that anyone who has used one understands. Sweeping food scraps directly from the cutting board into the sink and letting the disposal process them immediately completely eliminates a source of odor and bacteria in the kitchen that nothing else can solve more cleanly. Exposed trash cans placed in a kitchen corner create two parallel problems. Odors from food waste in the bin spread throughout the kitchen space, especially on hot days. And every time you move from the prep area to the trash can to discard food scraps, there is a certain probability of trash liquid or small debris falling onto the floor along the way. Repeat this dozens of times a day, and that is why the kitchen floor near the trash can is always the dirtiest area. An integrated double trash bin pull-out drawer placed directly under the prep board or next to the sink reduces trash travel by 85%. You stand in one place and sweep trash directly into the bin below without moving and without the risk of trash juice dripping onto the floor. The integrated design also keeps the trash bin completely sealed when not in use, controlling odors significantly more effectively than an exposed bin, even one with a lid. The practical trade-off is that you need to sacrifice a base cabinet space about 15 to 18 inches wide. In small kitchens with limited cabinet space, this is a decision that deserves careful consideration. A garbage disposal also requires underground electrical wiring under the cabinet and creates noise when operating. Not a big problem, but something you should know before deciding whether to install one. These 10 decisions will not make your kitchen clean itself, but they determine whether every time you clean, it actually matters. And over the next 10 or 20 years, that difference accumulates into something larger than you think.